Welcome to Wargroove. In the most anticipated video, we're gonna go over rifles and talk about what they can do, how good they are, what the story is with these things. Okay, rifles have 9 range. Let's get that out of the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's insane! And it's not just 9 range linearly. They can also go 1 square up or 1 square down, or 1 square left or 1 square right. So they kind of have this bubble of, or this line, this beam of 9 range that they can hit. What's important to note is that rifles cannot target anything in a forest. So another rifle in the forest can hit your rifle, but you can't hit them. Rifles excel at taking out infantry, and yes, merfolk are infantry, sort of. They do great damage to pikes, alchemists, thieves, swords, and archers. And of course, other rifles. If we take a look at the damage matrix of the rifle, you can see that while they do great damage to infantry, including rifles themselves, they don't do very much damage to anything else. We're seeing like 25, 15, 10, 10, 10. Rifles just don't do a lot of damage to non-infantry like wagons or giants or knights. Whoa, that rifle just, yeah, you don't want to be doing this with rifles. So they can pretty much only do peck damage to anything tanky, but they do really well against personnel. Now, what are rifles good for? Well, alchemists are really strong right now. Because alchemists are really strong, and you'll get a lot of alchemists, pikes, and swords in the early capture phase, rifles can be very powerful early for messing up your opponent's opening, preventing them from capturing certain villages or getting a free unit early on. It can win you the game if they're not expecting it. Another great thing about rifles that most people don't realize is rifles are extremely sneaky. It is difficult to keep this insane range in mind at all times. Usually, your opponent will just put something in the rifle's range for free. The problem is, as good as rifles are, they're actually a little bit too good. Most maps that have easily accessible rifles will have rifles banned from the hideout because rifles would just dominate, and whoever gets their rifle to the center forest first auto wins because, watch this, none of my rifles could hit this rifle, right? But my opponent's rifle can easily snipe my rifles. So, second person to make a rifle loses the game? That's insane. For that reason, rifles are very heavily limited right now on competitive maps. They're limited by terrain, they're limited by hideout placement. You're usually not going to get a map that puts a rifle right in the center right away, because it would just give a huge advantage to the first person to do that. And they couldn't really counter with a rifle of their own unless there was like a perfectly positioned forest on their side too. So, for those of you who think rifles are weak right now, they're not, but the maps are being designed to make them a little weaker, so that you have to only buy a rifle when the opportunity is right and to give your opponent some counterplay. Let's talk real quick about the mechanics of the rifle unit. The rifle unit can move 4 spaces. Now, that's pretty good. 4 spaces. It's also pretty weird. If you think about it, almost nothing moves 4 spaces. Maybe a sword. A sword is about the only unit that actually moves 4 spaces. The sword and the commander. So it has a pretty decent movement speed and can reposition fairly well. However, let's say I want to hit this rifle here. If I move, I don't get the option to attack. Nope. You can't move and attack with a rifle. It's like a trebuchet or a ballista in that sense. However, it's a foot unit, so obviously it can climb mountains and the like, but it cannot move and attack. So let's have it stand right here and fire at this rifle. And now let's take a look. If you look at the bottom right of the screen, you can see that I'm missing a little bullet icon. Hold on a minute, why am I missing a bullet icon? None of the other rifles are missing a little bullet, even the one I just attacked. Does this mean yes, a rifle has ammo. You have a limited number of shots you can fire. Your first shot was pretty standard, and your second shot is really more of the same. And your third shot is a crit. That will deal 1.5 times the amount of damage, which is pretty big. Hold on. It's raining. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But my range hasn't changed. That's right. The weather does not affect the range of a rifle. Pretty interesting. So your third shot, when you only have one bullet left, will crit the opponent. Huge damage, but now what happens? I have no more bullet icons. I'm out of ammo. What does being out of ammo do? Well, when you're out of ammo, you can't attack anymore. All you can do is reload, and you can move and reload, so this is a good time to reposition, reload your gun, and you'll have all three. That being said, you don't have to wait to run out of bullets to reload. For example, if you attack your opponent, you can still reposition and reload. That's a valid option, or stay where you are and reload. You have the option to reload back to full as long as you have at least one bullet missing, which makes sense. So you can reload at any time. Maybe I don't want to finish this rifle off. It's too weak to care about. I want to walk over here and reload. Of course, if you always reload after firing one shot, you'll never get your crit condition because you only crit on the last bullet. Let's look at a realistic situation where you would want rifles. Actually, multiple rifles. Let's say you had this game, and by the way, both of these teams have about equal gold. We get the feeling here's how they ended up in this situation. Player 1 built some swords for the opening capture phase, maybe a pike or two. Player 2 built some alchemists in the opening capture phase, and saw all those pikes and decided to build an archer to take them out, and then some knights for aggression, assuming they'd be able to use alchemist archer to take out the pikes. Who didn't like that, so they built some rifles to take out all of these very handy infantry units, the alchemists and this here archer. Player 2 built a giant to help deal with these pikes, and player 1, pretty confident that they could deal with the alchemists, built a dragon, which is great against the knights and the giant. So both players are trying to counter each other. Like the knights, for example, could snipe these rifles. The alchemists could go into any of this, including the dragon, but they don't want to get attacked first because they're squishy. The archer could go into any of this, but probably doesn't want to deal with the dragon and get zoned by the rifle. The giant could deal with any of this, but not the dragon. The dragon could deal with any of this, but not the alchemists. It's a constant rocks, paper, scissors, shoe. So this is a realistic situation you could be in. Now let's take a look. I can't hit anything with these rifles. As player 1, I could get chip damage on this knight, but I don't want to do that. I made a joke when rifles first came out that you'll never attack with them. You'll just keep repositioning them to zone out your opponent. And it turned out to be, believe it or not, pretty accurate. A lot of the times, having a rifle is all about zoning out your opponent's troops. You usually won't get a kill with it unless they go in on you, but you might force them to back off and lose a village. You might force them to make a bad trade or go in on you on a bad moment. You might zone off their alchemists and be able to pick off a giant. Now, I can't pick anything off right now, so I'm just going to end my turn. And now, my opponent has a decision to make. They can't really reach me with the giant, with the knight. They can't go in on me. If this archer can't go in, even though it's windy, there's nothing they can do to get to me. But if they stay where they are, this giant and this knight are going to get sniped by my rifles. So they have no choice but to try to go around. So they go around, try to get a good position, right? Trying to flank me with the knights. And wait a minute, can they put the archer there? They've got to check. So if we're on the clock, I've just wasted some of their time checking. No, they can't do that. They can't put it there. So they've got to move it straight up. And just having rifles means if we're on the clock, it had to take them a little bit longer to make that decision, constantly checking my rifle's range. Ooh, I don't know, is it in the range or not? So I've wasted some of their time and forced them to reposition like this instead of going directly at me. Alright, it's player 1's turn. Now let's talk about memes. Okay, rifles are good, but are they that good? Can you use them to kill a commander? Well, let's say you buy enough rifles to do just that, enough to kill a commander. The fact of the matter is, if you buy 11 rifles, which is what you need to reliably kill a commander. A rifle does an average of 10 damage to a commander. So 10 damage times 10 is 100%. You kill the commander. If you have 11 rifles, then even if you low roll it, you should still get the kill unless you're like ridiculously unlucky. So let's say you need 11 rifles mathematically to kill a commander. Alright. Well, you need all 11 rifles to be perfectly positioned to hit the commander in a single turn so that he doesn't just heal all of this up. and each one of them has to use their attack on the commander. You get the idea. You see where this is going, right? For that same amount of gold, you could buy 6 dogs, a knight, a dragon, 3 trebuchets, 2 giants, and a sword. I guarantee that the only thing these rifles could kill is this sword before they're completely destroyed by all of this heavy artillery and dragons and dogs. So, spamming rifles is not a great idea, and you're not going to be able to snipe down a commander with rifles alone. You can totally do 10 damage, and use that to help you in a kill against a commander, so the rifle, much like the witch or the archer, can participate in the lethal attempt if you're going for that kill on the commander. But spamming rifles is just not a good idea. The gold doesn't add up. Now, let's talk about whether or not a rifle can kill a stronghold on its own by sniping it every turn. Well, the answer is no. On average, a rifle will do 8 damage to a stronghold. You see, that I low-rolled in 3, it didn't even tickle it. Also, strongholds regenerate 10 health every turn, so it's already back to normal. However, rifles have a multi-turn progression, unlike other units. They don't deal the same amount of damage every turn. Their bullets deal a set amount of damage, and then they crit on the 3rd turn, and then they reload on the 4th turn. So it's a 4-turn cycle. Now, let's think about that. An average of 8 damage, then we crit, we do 12 damage, and then we do 0 damage. Add all that up together, that's 8 plus 8, which is 16, plus 12, we're at 28, plus 0, still 28. 28 divided by 4 is 7? 7. So let me get this straight. A rifle will do on average 7 damage to a stronghold a turn, and a stronghold regenerates 10 health a turn. You're doing negative damage. You will never kill this stronghold. It's impossible. So, how many rifles does it take to pull off the meme, the Stronghold assassination? Sniping the stronghold from, as the legend goes, so far away that your opponent cannot stop you without diving into your whole army. Well, we already explained that to buy enough rifles to do something like this, your opponent can buy a pretty big army, and you've got nothing to defend them. So, really, these rifles would be exposed, and even if we put them at the maximum range from the stronghold, is that far enough? This rifle is at exactly 9 range, and so is this one, and so is this one. These two are a little bit closer because they have to be. If you do the math, and remember that rifles do an average of 7 damage a turn to a stronghold, and keep in mind that we have a 4-turn cycle. So ideally, what we really want to do is not attack over 4 turns, because that 4th turn is going to hurt us, but attack in 3 turns. So we get attack, attack, crit. Attack, attack, crit. So every rifle will do 8 plus 8 plus 12, 28 damage over 3 turns. And the stronghold will regenerate twice, because we're going to end our turn twice. So that means the stronghold really has 120 health. So if each rifle does 28 damage, and we're trying to do 128 health, is 5 rifles enough? Well, 5 times 20 is 100, and 5 times 8 is 40. So yes, we would need 5 rifles in order to kill the stronghold in 3 turns. But if you don't believe me, if you think I might have done the math wrong, let's test it out. I'm gonna use hotkeys to speed this up a little bit. Attack, 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 attack. Alright, so on turn 1, we've dealt about 32 damage. That's pretty expected. I think we might have even high-rolled a bit. Now, these dogs could just rush in and kill you, and that's the problem. This won't work because you're not really as far away from the stronghold as the numbers suggest. But let's pretend for a minute that the dogs don't just rush in and kill all your rifles. Let's keep attacking for turn 2 and just see how much damage we do. Again, using hotkeys to speed this up a little bit. Alright, we did a lot of damage. It's already down to 34, and it regenerates again. Alright, so now it's gonna have 44, and we said we were doing 28 a turn, but remember, this is the crit turn. So on this turn, we deal more damage. Every rifle is dealing 12, so in theory, we should be dealing 60 damage, and it goes down. Alright guys, let's wrap this up with a final review. Rifles are great at assassinating all kinds of infantry, but they can't hit anything in a forest. And they're terrible at attacking pretty much anything else. It just doesn't work. Rifles can't really kill a commander no matter how many you have. It would take such a ridiculously large amount of rifles to do it that your opponent could build a much better army comp and just destroy you. A single rifle cannot, no matter what, snipe an HQ on its own. It just doesn't do enough damage. You'd need 5 rifles to kill an HQ over 3 turns, and a handful of dogs can just wipe out your contingent. In fact, the number of dogs equaling this amount of rifles in gold would be more dogs than you would ever build in a single game, so I guarantee you, this, unfortunately, the HQ firing squad meme does not work. However, you can of course use the rifle to do chip damage, and just one rifle, not many, to the HQ, maybe to keep damage on it over multiple turns. But as you can see, I low rolled a 3, it's not that reliable. Realistically, you use rifles in combination with other units to snipe your opponent's alchemists and other personnel units, but you have to keep them safe, keep a wall of units in front of them, and a lot of their use will come from repositioning them to zone your opponent off of critical parts of the battlefield, especially where you're fighting, or a village, or their own stronghold. Just saying, you can train a rifle on your opponent's stronghold, not to hit the stronghold, but to hit the pikes guarding it, and to force them out of the way. Another powerful rifle use. This wraps up the rifle tutorial guide. I hope you found this helpful. This has been Sneaky Dragon. If you have any questions about rifles or Wargroove in general, please leave a comment down below. And as always, welcome to Wargroove.